Alrighty, hello and welcome to another episode of New Game Plus. This is our live TV record on Twitch, and thank you very much for joining us. My name is Jason, I'm your host. I'm joined by two of the older guard for New Game Plus. That is, of course, Mr. Donald and Mr. Jamie. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, how you doing? How you doing, you lovely internet people? You because it's a very interesting time in games right now because stuff is out. Stuff is out and stuff is good.
And stuff is coming out as well. I think we're like, as much as there is a lot of, September was, for September standards, there was some decent stuff out, but October's another crazy month. Like, it really is not going to stop until it stops, kind of thing. So,
And then November is
Yep.
madness.
yeah, pretty much. So, I normally we do the news. Normally, Jack at this point, I'm taking over for Jack, who is taking a week or two off. I think he wanted me to break off, which is fair enough. Normally, Jack would do news right now, but I got Donald. So why don't I just make Donald do the news? Do you want to do the news, Donald?
But yeah, no, yeah. He got to steal all the good big juicy news weeks because last week we had the big Bethesda Microsoft announcement. The week before we had all the console announcements. This week's, but there still has been some news this time. And to kick things off, let's talk about the Xbox Series external storage solutions because Microsoft has made available the external storage cards that will provide expandable storage for the Xbox Series consoles. There is a catch, however. They will cost in Australia $359 for 1 terabyte. To add some context to that, the Series X has 1 terabyte of internal storage, whilst the Series S has 512 gigabytes. Then the thing is, if you want to have some external storage, if you want to run your games off external storage, you will need these proprietary storage cards because of the SSD technology that is utilized by the Xbox Series consoles. Still, you can store game files on external USB hard drives. You just need to transfer back and forth between the SSDs if you want to actually play them.
Isn't that what the Wii Shop did? Isn't that what the Wii Shop did? It was the same thing where you could store it on the SSD, but to run.
It was the old fridge analogy, if I remember correctly. You have to kind of take stuff out of your fridge and kind of store it back out. It was really, really dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those things didn't cost 2/3 of the price of the base console now, did it?
Yep.
Therein lies the rub. Yeah, because that to me is just crazy. Like, that is some Sony memory stick duo Vita memory card tier shenanigans. Like, holy crap. I mean, I guess the difference you could say is that unlike say, the Vita memory cards or the memory card duos, there wasn't really an equivalent product. Like, they like to pretend that like they were, this unique platform or whatever, but they weren't really that much faster than compact flash or SD at its time. This, is its own unique specialized SSD technology, sure, but still $350. Like, Jesus, like, that's a lot of money.
If memory serves, and admittedly I kind of should have done a little bit of looking into this, it's roughly around the same price as like a 1 terabyte M2 SSD, if I remember correctly, Don. Would that be correct?
Yeah, the only time I've been on the PC websites is to refresh 3080 cards. They are still sold out, by the way.
Fair enough. Thank you for the update. But yeah, no, just like I get the fact that from what I understand, it's roughly around the same price. If I remember correctly, it's roughly around the same price as like a 1 terabyte M2 SSD, which is roughly what they're going for. Which look, it's great. It's really fast storage. I love it. I have an M2 in my computer right now, but it's like, I don't know if I'd pay $350 for the equivalent in my console, especially when
Cloney reckons they're $289 for the SSD you're discussing.
So you're definitely paying the proprietary tax there, and which is it compares in contrast with the others with the other side. With Sony, with the PlayStation 5, where you can put in your own MM2 SSD. It has that expandable storage. Admittedly, it only works with certain SSDs that meet a specific speed threshold, ones which aren't really available on the consumer market at the moment. But we've been reassured by Sony they should be available by the end of the year. So that's a much more flexible solution than Microsoft. So the shoe is very much on the other foot, isn't it? Or rather, we're going back to the PS3 360 days, aren't we?
Well, I mean, if we go back to those days, it's like, hey, I could just buy a standard hard drive and just chuck it straight on my PS3. It was
that was one thing when we did the News Game Plus podcast with Dermy the other day. That was one thing we said is like, as much shit as I love to give Sony, the one thing that they did really well was the fact that for PS3 and PS4 you could just put in laptop hard drives. You know what I mean? Like, and you can put an SSD into your PS4, I think, and it slightly increases the speed. But as a general rule, at least you could just buy some proprietary. Hell, you could in my old PS PS3, I used my old laptop hard drive because I had like a 250 gig laptop hard drive in there. I just took it out and chucked it into the PS3, and it was fine. You know what I mean? Like, it just worked. So credit to them, like, on that. That was probably one of the things that I think Sony's always been pretty decent on. We'll see how that goes for this gen, though.
Yeah, it's also an interesting. It's also interesting given that games are going to be big on these consoles because of the aim for 1440p and 4K textures. It means that the game files, which have already sort of blown up to around 50 to 100 gigs this generation, or an entire freaking hard drive if you want to play Warzone, then like it's only going to get even bigger. Having said that, Microsoft did confirm that the Series S files will be about on average 30% smaller than the Series X equivalents, just because they aim for that lower texture quality.
Yeah.
You get SSD in there. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that. Although let's face it, like this won't be an issue that we'll have to worry about until next year, given the stock issues that continue to persist with those consoles. Hey.
I mean, look, I would be really nice if I got told sometime too. It's like, hey, you're getting your Xbox Series X sometime in November or December. That would be really cool. I mean, Jason, you're in the same boat as well, correct?
Yeah, I'm JB Hi-Fi. It's the same difference. I mean that was fast. And then have you seen Target have had to while back there? They were sending confirmation emails out to people, and now this week they're sending out emails saying to people, by the way, you actually didn't get one. Yeah, that's a bit full on. Yeah,
but at least they're refunding people, which is the good
that's
thing.
true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the same thing is happening all around the world as well. I think Amazon America was sending out cancellation emails to certain customers saying that they might not get their things at launch.
Were they sending out emails saying you've accidentally just bought an Xbox One? Would you like to change your order?
I hope what's called I hope that there was at least a 72-hour regret window before they shipped out those Xbones.
Oh, look, I mean, the nice thing with it is like Xbone One X sits in that interesting spot where it's in some ways it's more technically more powerful than the Series S, but so and with obviously the backwards compatibility of it, like there's worse mistakes to make, but obviously if you wanted a Series X and you bought a One X, well then maybe you should read what's on the website before you click the money button. Yeah. Gentlemen, a game that has been out, I guess, now for how long has it technically been out for? What, 8 months? Well, no, I mean it's been pre-released for a long time.
It's been in early access since December 2018, and it finally came out in version 1.0.
Yeah, the truly epic game store, because it's only epic stuff allowed. Hades is the game that we are discussing, which is of course the latest game from Supergiant. I'm pretty sure that's who they're called. That's their name, isn't it?
Supergiant Games. This is their fourth game after Transistor, Pyre, and Bastion. And
I forgot about Pyre. Yeah.
Yeah,
everyone did. It's okay.
A lot of people did, unfortunately. Anyway, you can watch a review for Pyre on NewGamePlus.tv. But we're talking about Hades today, which is a roguelite dungeon crawler, which we have to admit is a very, 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 very crowded genre. Even in the current month, we've got no less than 3 or 4 roguelite dungeon crawlers coming out. However, there is something that sets Hades apart from all of these games, and that is just the absolute polish that it received, not just from the two and so years of early access, but from the past 10 years of Supergiant games. I'm stealing from the from this Steam store page copy here, but it's very much got the action combat of Bastion. It's got the art style and aesthetic of Transistor. It's got the branching narrative of Pyre. It's a combination of all that into this game, which arguably is the best game that Supergiant's games has released, and that is a very high standard. It should be known.
I will.
So for those who haven't played them, they're all the games you're describing are isometric, kind of looking down action games. Again, Pyre I've never touched, but Transistor and Bastion were both that kind of borderline grid base for Bastion, but it kind of freed itself up a little bit for Transistor.
And it's got an emphasis on art style and on narrative as well.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So one of the things that one of the Bastion memes was always the very well done narration over the top of it and stuff like that. So they really, when they go down an aesthetic path, they take it to its natural conclusion. And it seems like that's what they've done with Hades. Obviously, it's the Greek pantheon and all that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, but I guess the thing is, like, if you've played Bastion, have you played Hades? Do you know, like, is there enough different? Yeah.
Yes.
I'd argue that yes. Like, Jamie, have you played Bastion recently?
Not recent. I kind of touched a little bit of the phone version when they made it free not too long ago, but no, not recent, not super recently.
But even from like your memories and looking back on gameplay, there is a certain there's a certain flow and pizzazz, for the want of a better word, to that wasn't really present in Bastion's combat, which is very much present in Hades. Because like it being a roguelite, the whole aim is that you go to you crawl through dungeons until you die, and then you do it all over again until you eventually don't die. But the moment to moment combat in this game just feels incredibly tight and snappy.
It's
Like just something as small as the dash button, like the way that dashing feels in this game, of bouncing around the room as you evade your enemies. Even that small act feels satisfying. Add on to that the 6 weapons on offer, each with their own various modifications, and yeah, going through dungeons is it just has a compelling, like, I'm just going through all the gamer stereotype superlatives here. So visceral, endlessly satisfying, things like that. It's just an incredibly fun game to play in the moments to moments.
I
And then,
absolutely
Jason,
agree
you
with that.
alluded to the Greek mythology, and that is very much running through the entire game. As in, for one, you play as Zagreus, son of Hades, as you try to escape from the underworld to the surface, for reasons that you'll discover as you go through the game. But along the way, and this is kind of what makes every run different, is the fact that you receive boons from the various Olympian gods to power up your run. So, for instance, you might be met by Zeus, who will give you the ability to add chain lightning to your attacks. You may be then met by Ares, the god of war, to be able to add doom effects to Dionysus, who will give your enemies hangover, which is basically poison. There
I
are
would, I would, I would like to call you out. I am pretty sure that Kratos is the god of war. But
Sony, don't believe Sony's lies, please.
don't, yeah, see, and that's Galia saying that. Yeah.
I walked straight into that one. But nonetheless, like you'll eventually, like as you play on, you'll eventually discover like the favorite gods that you like, or you'll discover a really synergistic build that just absolutely cuts hard through enemy and makes your race to the final boss just incredibly easy.
Yeah, I guess I could pop in here because I've been playing a bunch of Hades, not as much as Don, but I've been playing a bunch of it too, and I think I agree with most of what he's saying. Like to me, it just feels really tight. It feels really just fun just to get into a fight and just kind of discover what works and what doesn't work on the fly. I think it really works. But I think the thing that really strikes out to me, and I play a lot of roguelikes, a lot of bad ones, a lot of good ones, but I think the thing that really stands out to me is that it's really reactive in a way I haven't seen any other roguelike really do. Like there's moments where the game will comment on just really, really, really specific things. Like, for instance, hey, you've got the timer on because you want to time your runs. Oh, you just run into a goddess who will comment on the fact that, hey, I see you timing yourself. Well done. You've got you got your character commenting when you're in the, I think it's when you're in the not the pause menu, the stats menu, you're looking at your build, and if you're being attacked there, he'll comment on that. Your character will comment on previous runs. Other characters will comment on the stuff you've done in the game world. Like, it's really, really cool. And it feels like, compared to most other roguelikes I've played, there's always something new. And
And
that's
that's
really cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the other thing that pushes Hades sets Hades apart from the rest of the roguelite and roguelike crowd is the emphasis on narrative as well. As in, they managed to fit a narrative into a game that is essentially about running the same course over and over again. Because as Jamie said before, like each time you run into a character, they will have a bit of dialogue that is either reacting to your previous actions, either on your last life or your current build at the moment, or they'll have a bit of dialogue that alludes to either the greater narrative of why Zagreus is trying to escape from Hades, or even just a small character moment like the fact that Hades really dislikes the god of the sea. I'm blanking on his name.
Poseidon.
Neptune.
Poseidon. Yeah, like he really has a beef with Poseidon for some reason, and you get that with all the characters, not just the Olympian gods but also the various characters of the underworld too, from Megara, who you run into like at the end of the first biome, to even just the Adusa, the what's called the person that cleans up around the House of Hades, where you return to at the end of every life after you die, and so yeah, like the only kind of shame with that is that the narrative itself is great. It compels you to keep on going, even if you run into a wall in the actual game as you die over and over again, you still get some sort of narrative reward. The only catch is a lot of narrative is sort of stuck to is back ended, so that you need to actually clear a run before you get a semblance of the greater narrative, and then you have to beat the game 9 more times in order to get the true ending and credits, which does kind of prevent a lot of people from seeing this game potentially through to its end.
That's a little bit Gungeon. So Gungeon's got a very similar thing. If I can jump in there, Jamie. So you had all the different. So you had to take all the different elements of the gun that can kill time, and then you have to do a run with every single player with all those elements. Get to the final part. Pick up the bullet. Pick up the gun, and then beat your true pass. So you had to beat it at least 8 times to get no more, like 10, 12 times to get to the thing. And then, like I said, then all of it kind of starts to make sense in the wider thing. So it seems to be that these well-made kind of narrative-driven roguelikes tend to have those same limitations because it relies on you having passed it at least once or twice to understand the overarching narrative.
Hades is just sticking in my mind, even though I've played quite a lot of it. I've seen the game through inside and out, but I still have a compulsion to keep on playing. Like just from something as small as the moment-to-moment combat and the and going through a run with some god awfully synergistic boon build, or just seeing the tiny snippets of narrative that I've still yet to unlock from the various hidden weapon aspects and things like that. It's a game that I just am compelled to keep on playing, but I'm grateful for it because like Hades is in itself a very good game to play. It's got that super giant polish. It's got the 10 years worth of roguelike lessons. It's got 10 years worth of super giants lessons. It's a combination of all of that, and I would almost say it's some of the best in gaming this year.
Okay, so that is my last question. We're going to wrap it up there. So, Don, you obviously reckon it's worth checking out. It definitely sounds like you're recommending it from the point of view.
My praise for this game is overwhelming and effusive.
And Jamie, how about yourself?
I would like to say it's one of the 10 best video games of 2020.
Fair enough. I'm not convinced that's a particularly controversial statement at the moment, but that's okay. We will go to a break. We will come back and we will discuss another video game, which is 13 Sentinels. So stay tuned. I know you may not have played much of it, Don, but Jamie, I know you have. 13 Sentinels. It's a game about... It's a Japanese game about kids piloting robots.
What a concept.
What a concept. I could use a little fuel myself. But realistically, it does it a little bit differently. While it still manages to kind of sit with a lot of the tropes, it takes a little bit of a different path. There's time travel involved. You flip between a bunch of different time frames. Obviously the way the game is segregated is really interesting because for a lot of these kind of games, especially ones like this, which are half visual novel, half kind of I say half. 1/3 visual novel, 1/3 Gaktan, what's his name? Naruhodo, Ace Attorney, kind of figuring out the different things, and then part like tactical RPG. Do you know what I mean? It's such a weird game in the way that they present it because these elements aren't combined. They feed into each other and they're interlocked, but they're not all in the one thing. You play the visual novel and you play the tactical missions and you try and work out the index to try and figure stuff out. Did you find that jarring? It's definitely different, but I'm not convinced that it's inherently bad.
I like it. I like the fact that there is such a clear divide, there is I like to think of it as tower defense more so.
Yeah. Tower defense is fair. Yeah, yep.
Because the way it also works is that you've basically got the two games. You've got the visual novel aspect, you've got the tower defense. But in my mind, I come for the story. The tower defense stuff is fine. I don't hate it. I don't think it's bad, but it's also, to me, the weakest part of the game. But you can't just say, well, I'm just going to go through all this so I can go through the rest of the visual novel stuff. No, it works in concert. So you have to play the tower defense to play the visual novel. I hit my microphone. You also have to play the visual novel to play more of the tower defense. Yeah. It works in concert. But before we go any further, there's a quote I want to read from this. So a lot of how this game came about was because there's a quote going around from Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of Smash Brothers.
Yes.
And it's probably the best way I can describe this game. It's really, really amazing. So give me 1 second, just gonna pull this up. It's a bit of a long one, so bear with me. The presentation of a characteristic adventure scenario. Oh, hang on. That's 1 second. Deleted a few things now.
Find the right quote. Yeah.
Hang on, I gotta pull this up. 1 second.
What is pre-production?
It does sound like I had basically zero awareness of what 13 Sentinels is, apart from the side it reminds me of the Wu-Tang album Enter the whatever it is Chambers.
36.
Enter the 36 Chambers. So yeah, so I wasn't that far off. I was gonna say 48.
Okay. I have the quote. Here we go.
But before you do that, Jamie, I do want to say it does remind me of Persona 5 in that the visual novel and the dungeon crawling aspects both feed into each other mechanically and narratively. So you've got my attention now, Jamie. Win this attention with this quote of yours.
Okay, the presentation of a characteristic adventure scenario. The stories in movies and novels are basically lines. Sound novels are a type of adventure game at a vertical axis, making it a 2D plane. The scenario in 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is three-dimensional, as if it were 3D. There are 13 protagonists, and they are from different eras. At first, it was confusing and difficult to grasp, but as you continue to play, you'll become more immersed and enjoy it more as your understanding increases. You'll also become surprised at its depth. The potential in this method of presentation is endless. However, it's genuinely not possible to imitate it. It's wholly unique. There's never been a work like this before, and I don't think there'll be a continuation either. If you want to play it, it has to be now. Anyone who wants to write a game scenario should play 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, Masahiro Sakurai. And that to me is like the best summary of that game.
So thank you, Sakurai, for your review.
Thank you, Samurai. Yeah, thanks, Samurai. We've just stolen your review, just like everyone steals the New Game Plus name. I agree with that nearly in its entirety. The only thing I would say is that, because he's right in that most of the time when you're playing these kind of games, like even if you have the different trees that you can follow, like over your different playthroughs and stuff like that. I'll do that one on my second playthrough. I'll do that one on my third playthrough. This goes a step beyond that. This will literally let you just do them in the one sitting. So basically, you play every character's story until a certain point that you haven't reached in the battle side of it, and the battles all take place within this kind of 1 or 2 day stretch. You know what I mean? Like every battle that you do is 3 to 4 minutes after each other. So you're in sector 1 of the city, and then you're in sector 2 of the city, you're in sector 3 of the city, and so it's basically the battles themselves take place over the course of like 1 day, 1 or 2 days for each kind of chapter, and that helps with the narrative because it goes, cool, here's all these things that happen in this 1 day that exist in the world of the battle system, and then you see what the ramifications of that are in the visual novel system, and the characterization's great, and there's tropes. Don't get me wrong, they know they're playing these tropes, but they're playing them with the existing things in mind, like the 80s the 80s kind of tomboy tough girl, and Ogata the straight up delinquent, and all this kind of stuff. But like Jamie mentioned, I believe it was actually in the quote, there's different protagonists from different timelines. So there's some from 2025, so they're more modern sensibilities. There's ones from even further future than that. There's ones from the past. It really does a good job of combining, I guess, the prevailing attitudes of each of those time frames and making the characters seem real, and then presenting them, as part of this kind of, this story, this overarching story about these, what is effectively a drama. Like there's amnesia involved, there's robots, there's World War II involved. You know what I mean? Like it really is such a wide-ranging game that following each person's narrative arc becomes interesting. And I don't even particularly like visual novels. I've never been a visual novel fan. But yeah, before I do go on, thank you, Furball, for the follow as well. But Jamie, I'll let you take over now.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. To me, I think it's kind of the surprising thing is that every character in every scenario is so radically different. Like, I don't want to... So this is one of those games where I'd say, look, if you really are interested in the story, you have any interest in this game at all, I would say, look, go buy it. Go buy it straight away, because I think the less you know going in, the better.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the scenarios do a good job of feeling different from one another. Like, I was playing one at the moment where, and because again it deals with a lot of time travel, I played one where one of the characters stuck in a time loop, and that they do some really interesting things with that. You've got other ones where you've got characters who are just kind of traveling between eras and how they would respond to those eras. Like it is it is non-linear in a way that makes sense, but also there is totally a way, if you really want to, they list every kind of cutscene and event in a linear order. If you ever want to go back to it, which if you want to make sense of the game that way, you could totally do that too.
Thank you very much for joining me, both of you. Don't forget to check us out on the socials listed, and we'll see you later.